The tourist, confident his status gave him the right to mock, tugged at the Queen's Guardsman's belt, expecting laughter. Instead, the guard's swift and shocking response silenced the crowd. What happened next changed everything for the tourist and left everyone watching stunned. Let's begin. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We share the untold stories, secrets, and traditions of the British Guards every day. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. It was a bustling afternoon in London, and Buckingham Palace was surrounded by tourists eager to capture the grandeur of the historic landmark. Amid the sea of cameras and chatter stood Jason Watson, an outspoken American tourist with a knack for making himself the center of attention. His bright red cap, emblazoned with the words, "Best Trip Ever," was as loud as his personality. Jason thrived on provoking reactions, and today, the famed Queen's Guard caught his eye. Jason's gaze landed on a stoic guardsman standing near the palace gates. The man was an immovable figure of discipline, clad in the iconic red coat and towering bearskin hat. Jason smirked, his voice cutting through the ambient noise. "Hey, do these guys even breathe, or are they statues?" he jeered, his exaggerated tone drawing chuckles from nearby tourists. The faint ripple of laughter emboldened him. Jason wasn't content with a mere remark. He wanted a show. He sauntered closer, weaving through the crowd until he was behind the guard. For a moment, he hesitated, but his craving for attention overpowered his better judgment. He reached out and gave the guard's belt a playful tug, his grin widening when there was no reaction. Encouraged, he yanked harder, attempting to loosen it entirely, basking in the murmurs of amusement from the gathering audience. Big mistake. The guard, William Fletcher, a seasoned veteran with over a decade of service, reacted with practiced precision. In one fluid motion, he pivoted, seizing Jason's wrist with an unyielding grip. The force was firm but controlled, a silent statement of authority. His expression remained unshaken, his voice low and sharp. "Step away, sir. Immediately." The laughter evaporated, replaced by a tense silence that swept through the crowd. Jason froze, his bravado deflating under the weight of the guard's composure, his once smug expression twisted into one of discomfort and disbelief. The spectacle he'd tried to create had turned on him, and now all eyes were fixed on his humiliation. Jason yanked his arm, twisting his wrist in an attempt to free himself, but the guard's grip was unyielding. William Fletcher, unmoved by the tourist's struggle, stood firm, his hand like iron. The tourists, who had initially chuckled at Jason's antics, were no longer laughing. A murmur rippled through the crowd, voices laced with disapproval. "Unbelievable. He's disrespecting the guard," a woman muttered, her tone sharp. "What kind of person does that?" another man added, shaking his head. Jason's confidence wavered as the weight of judgment pressed down on him. He shot a glance at the crowd, expecting at least some support, but saw only frowns and whispers of condemnation. The collective disapproval stung more than the guard's grip. With one final desperate tug, Jason wrenched his arm free, stumbling back a step. He winced, clutching his wrist, which now throbbed with pain. Instead of retreating or acknowledging his mistake, Jason's wounded pride surged forward in the form of anger. "It was a joke, man. Relax," he barked, his voice louder than necessary. "What's wrong with you?" The crowd fell silent, their gazes shifting between the defiant tourist and the unshaken guardsman. William didn't flinch. His expression remained impassive, his eyes locked onto Jason with a calm, almost chilling composure. His silence was louder than any words could have been, a quiet assertion of authority and dignity. Jason's chest tightened. He felt the energy of the crowd shift further against him. Their judgment wasn't just palpable, it was suffocating. His anger fizzled into a lingering discomfort as he realized how isolated he was. No one had laughed with him. No one had defended him. He was alone in his foolishness. Rubbing his wrist again, Jason tried to steady his breath, but his bruised ego ached far worse than the physical pain. The laughter and attention he had sought had turned into something much colder. Shame. The next morning, Jason woke with a heavy weight in his chest. The events at Buckingham Palace replayed in his mind like a bad dream he couldn't shake. The crowd's disapproving murmurs, the guard's unflinching stare, and his own foolish outburst circled endlessly, leaving a sour taste in his mouth. For the first time in years, he felt genuine shame. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, noting the redness in his wrist where the guard had gripped him, but the physical reminder was nothing compared to the sting of his actions. "That wasn't me," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I need to make this right." Determined, Jason dressed simply. A plain shirt, no flashy cap, no loud accessories. The bright, boisterous image he had carefully crafted for himself felt hollow now. As he made his way to Buckingham Palace, his steps were deliberate, his usual swagger replaced with a quiet resolve. Arriving at the gates, Jason watched as tourists milled about, snapping photos and admiring the guards. He scanned the lineup and felt his chest tighten when he recognized William Fletcher among the new shift. The guard's stoic figure stood as a reminder of Jason's poor judgment. He waited patiently, watching the crowd thin out until he could approach without drawing attention. Jason stepped forward, his palms slightly sweaty, his voice steady but laced with genuine regret. "Excuse me," he began. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Yesterday I acted like a jerk. I didn't think about how disrespectful I was being. I hope you can forgive me." William's gaze shifted to Jason, his expression softening slightly. There was a pause before the guard gave a small nod. "Acknowledging your mistake is a good start," he replied, his voice calm and measured. "Respect isn't a joke. I trust you've learned something from this." Jason nodded earnestly. "I have. Thank you." As he walked away, a weight seemed to lift from Jason's shoulders. It wasn't just an apology. It was a step toward becoming better. Jason left Buckingham Palace with a sense of clarity and purpose that felt foreign yet satisfying. The weight of guilt that had lingered since the incident now gave way to a determination to make amends, not just to the guard he had wronged, but to the idea of respect itself. On his way back to his hotel, Jason kept replaying the exchange in his head. The guard's calm words, his unwavering professionalism, and the realization that his own behavior had been far from admirable. Back in his room, Jason sat down in front of his phone, opened his social media app, and hesitated for a moment. He had always used his platform for jokes, travel highlights, and flashy antics. This was different. This time he wanted to be honest. Taking a deep breath, he hit record. "Hey, everyone," he began, his voice steady but serious. "Yesterday I did something I'm not proud of. I mocked a tradition I didn't understand, and I disrespected someone who was simply doing their job. The guard's professionalism and composure showed me just how wrong I was. Respect isn't optional. It's something we owe to people, their culture, and their work, no matter where we are. If you're traveling, take a moment to appreciate where you are and what others do to uphold their traditions. Respect costs you nothing but means everything." Jason hit post and set the phone aside, unsure of what to expect. Within hours, the video began gaining traction. Comments flooded in, with people praising his willingness to take responsibility and reflect on his behavior. "This is the kind of accountability we need more of," one commenter wrote. Another added, "It's rare to see someone admit they were wrong. Respect to you for this." Back at the palace, William Fletcher heard about the video from his colleagues. Sitting in the guard quarters during a break, he watched it with a neutral expression. As the video ended, a small smile tugged at his lips. For him, it wasn't about recognition or validation, It was a reminder that even the most ignorant moments could spark growth and change. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and let us know in the comments which guard tradition you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next video.